David's master. David's master. The words of the master, we look at all of the places where Yeshua actually spoke and the places and situation that caused him to speak. We look at Matthew 22:41 through 46, also Mark 12:35 through 37, and Luke 20:41 through 44. There's three accounts of the same situation. I think we'll basically just stay in Matthew. We'll just stay in Matthew because it really gives us all of the information that we need for what happens over. If we just go over to Matthew 22 and read 41 through 46.
Matthew chapter 22, verse 41. And when the Pharisees were gathered together, Yeshua asked them, saying, "What do you think concerning the Messiah? Whose son is he?" They said to him, "The son of David." He said to them, "Then how does David in the spirit call him master, saying, Yahweh said to my master, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool of your feet? If then David calls him master, how is he his son?" And no one was able to answer him a word. And from that day on, no one was bold enough to ask him any more questions.
So funny to me. Yeshua, it seems as if the last few interactions that Yeshua was having with these various ones, he's being almost bombarded by various people, chief priests, Pharisees, Sadducees, Sanhedrin, Herodians, lawyers, doctors, bunches of people, individuals, asking him questions, trying to trip him up, trying to get him to say, something contradictory to, they try to catch him in whatever. And here we see this interesting thing where instead of all of these people, these various ones coming and questioning Yeshua, Yeshua finds an opportunity to now be the questioner. Right? Because again, in all of these interactions that have been happening, sequentially here, we can go back, as things are happening, where everything that we see is this one coming and asking this great question. But now we see with Yeshua, he sees that these Pharisees have gathered, these so-called thinkers about the law and so forth. And so he, in this question that he asks, this is really the question, right? This is the question. And you see what the result is, right? You see what the result is after the question is asked. Nobody bothers now at this point to come and ask him any more questions. No one is able, it says, to answer him from the question, and then nobody's bold enough to ask him anymore. I don't know if this is follow-up questions or people are just done asking questions. When it says that nobody's bold enough to ask him any more questions forever, or just right now where, at this particular juncture, nobody are asking. But it seems, at least for the people that are around, and it seems like it's a group of Pharisees here, none of them probably at this point, they were probably done, and so which leads us to kind of an understanding of the gravity of the question. It seems like a simple question. It seems like an easy question because they have an answer. They do have an answer. It's not the right answer, but they have an answer. But it's obviously not Moshe. Stop doing that. The answer. Right? And so let's look at what we see over here. And Yeshua asks, of course, this question here concerning Messiah. He wants to know from the Pharisees what is their thoughts about Messiah. But I think even though we see it as it says, there's two questions here. What do you consider? What do you think concerning the Messiah? And also, whose son is he? I'm not sure if he's asking two questions or he wants to know one thing, which is whose son is the Messiah. I feel like he's setting it up in terms of whose son is the Messiah with the initial idea, which is probably not a separate thing, but a singular thought. He wants them to understand he's talking about this is a Messiah question. Whose son is he? And so he asked him for, can you read again verse 43?
And he said to them, "And how does David in the spirit call him master, saying?"
Okay, so again, 42, they answer and say his son, he's the son of David. So they have an understanding that the Messiah is in fact the son of David. But because this don't stop right here, we know that that's not the answer. That's not the answer that they're looking for, that Yeshua is looking for. And so Yeshua has this follow-up question, and he goes to the Psalm 110 Psalm that he quotes there, verse 1. And so what I wanted to do was actually go over to Psalms and look at it over there. First of all, let's talk about Yeshua's response, because he says in 43, he talks about the fact that how then does David in the spirit call him master? I think that's an important component. We think about the idea of Yeshua bringing up, because we don't find that in the text in Psalms, where what thought process David is, where it's almost as if he's giving a clue of something when he says, then how does David in the spirit call him master? Because they gave an answer, son of David. It's obviously wrong because Yeshua has more to say, but I think the idea of in the spirit lets us understand why the answer is wrong. Because their answer to the question really is just a physical, carnal answer, right? It's kind of the answer that's right on top. It's the Peshat answer. It's the thing that's on the surface. The answer, yeah. It's the son of David. But that's not what he's looking for, and it couldn't be what he's looking for because of the fact that David, when he said what he said, is speaking in the spirit. So what does that mean? Does it mean that he was like in a trance or something whenever he said what he said? No, I'm not saying that he was in a trance. But when we think about,
I said maybe.
oh, maybe he was in a trance. I don't know. I think, but the thought. So we had to be able to think about the way that, every time we look at these scriptures, we have to think about them in the way that the people in the scriptures were thinking about things. We think about today and we think about people in the spirit, that in these days and times could mean many things. But in those days and times, when somebody's in the spirit, it has to do with prophetic speech. It has to do with divine inspiration. It has to do with receiving something from the Most High and saying what it is that you received. Look at 1 Corinthians 2. We're going to go to Psalms. Look at 1 Corinthians 2 and 14. 1 Corinthians 2 and 14.
1 Corinthians 2, verse 14. But the natural man does not receive the matters of the Spirit of Elohim, for they are foolishness to him, and he is unable to know them, because they are spiritually discerned.
Yeshua's asked a question, and they thought about the question from a physical standpoint. They gave their answer, which I guess in some regards isn't incorrect. It's not what he was looking for, though. That's why he had to go more. That's why there was, additional things that are said. But when we go over to Psalms, we go over to Psalms 110 and verse 1. First, just read Psalms 110 verse 1, just the first verse, because there's something in there that helps us the idea this idea of this thing of being in the Spirit. Read that verse right there.
Psalm 110, verse 1. Yahweh said to my master, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet.
Okay, so Yahweh said it doesn't seem that prophetic. I don't know. Does it? Let's look at that. Let's look at that verse there. Pull out the Strong's there for us. The Hebrew is such an interesting thing. Look at said. Said, that's an interesting word. It just said. He said it. But when you think about, there's so many words that he could have used for said. Right? There's so many words. But this one, he says na'um. Na'um. Right? An oracle. An oracle. Let's see if we want to look at some other things here from Na'um. What does the word study say on that word there? Very good. Let's see. Masculine noun, introducing an oracle, an utterance, a prophetic citing of Elohim's speech. It is used in an introduction to various utterances and means, thus says Yahweh, an utterance of Yahweh. And so I think it kind of puts weight on what it is that's coming. I guess the Most High says many things, and probably every single thing that he said is very important. But it's just interesting that, again, there's many things that could have been said in the process of saying Yahweh said, but this one specifically there's a connection to a prophetic utterance. So Yeshua is justified when he says, then how does David in the Spirit call him master? And so Yeshua helps us to understand this idea that David's prophesizing over here when he even says this. This is, it's interesting when we think about Psalms. I have an interesting thought about the Psalms. And, some people don't agree with me. When I think about foundational things in the Torah, in the Tanakh, I should say, the Torah is the foundation. These are my thoughts. The Torah is the foundation. When we get to things like Psalms, it's a psalm. It's a psalm. People have I don't know how everyone thinks about the original sin doctrine, but people go to Psalms 51 and say, see, shapen in iniquity. That means that you're born in sin. And they go to Psalms 51 and say it. I say, these are my thoughts. This is why I think about it. I say that that's a psalm That's David, lamenting about a situation, and he makes a proclamation. Is he defining for us what the status of a newborn child is? I don't think he's doing that.
Right.
Could he be stating a universal fact? Yes, maybe he could. But I think for the most part, what we have there is poetic.
Mm-hmm.
He's a poet. And he did, in fact, know it. Thank you very much. Okay, so over here, when he says Yahweh said, I think it gives us an identifier, a qualifier that this thing is, in fact, from Yahweh. This information that he's getting, and he's relaying that information. And so, and then Yeshua helps us further to understand that when again he says that David said what he said in the Spirit. The natural man, these Pharisees, who were very, they had, a lot of knowledge about the scriptures, they're obviously stumped by this question. They don't have the right answer because they're not thinking about these things from a spiritual perspective. And so again, when we look over here and in Psalms, again, this thing that Yeshua is talking about, this psalm that he hints to in regards to the Messiah, this right here, this is the coup de grace. That's French. It's the coup de grace. This is the kill shot to the Pharisees. They just quiet after this.
Why would you even come up with some shot understanding?
Because that's all they could do. Because Paul helps us understand the natural man, he don't know about the spiritual thing. He had to tell them that he was talking to them from a spiritual perspective. Oh, you gonna say David? I ain't talking about the physical things over here. We talking spiritual things. Mm-hmm. But then look what he say. He say over there, sit at my right hand. We're back. We're staying over here until my enemies are footstool at your feet. And so it's an interesting thing that we see in the scriptures, right? This thing called anthropomorphisms. These are the things that we should think about when we think about the scriptures in general. These anthropomorphisms, these things where these spiritual things, these spiritual thoughts and ideas are put into kind of a human framework. And so when he says, Yahweh said to my master, sit at my right hand, he's not necessarily speaking about a spatial situation, like over here, literally at the right hand of Yahweh. He's not even necessarily talking about anyone sitting anywhere either. Mm-hmm. Everything everything that the Most High says to us, emphatically everything. He says to us in a way that we in our physical minds and understanding can understand. Mm-hmm. When he spoke to Moses face to face, he wasn't talking to Moses like this, right? It's euphemistic, right? He don't even have a face. So he's speaking to us in a way that we're able to understand things and concepts and ideas. This is the same thing. When we talk about this idea of sitting at my right hand, it's giving you the idea, the way they understood it, is giving you the idea of strength and power. The originating point of the strength and power is at my right hand. I want to look at a couple things over here. I want to look at, go over to Exodus 15 and 6. Exodus 15 and 6. The right hand, there's symbolism involved in the right hand.
Exodus 15 and 6. Your right hand, O Yahweh, has become great in power, and your right hand, O Yahweh, has crushed the enemy.
Okay, very good. So, in Exodus, when we think about the Exodus from Egypt, there wasn't a hand that came out of the sky and did things to Egypt. There wasn't a hand that came out and picked up Israel and took them and put them over there, out from where they was, and put them over to. It's talking about the idea of power and strength and authority from a symbolic situation. Isaiah, look at Isaiah 41 and 10.
Isaiah 41 verse 10. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not look around, for I am your Elohim. I shall fortify you. I shall also help you. I shall also uphold you with the right hand of my righteousness.
Okay, very good. So here he's talking about my right hand, but he said my right hand of righteousness. It's not a place. It's not a physical thing. It's not spatial, right? It's conceptual. His power and authority is there where is something to be trusted in, but it's not a physical thing that's coming. Look at Psalm 16 and 8.
Psalm 16 verse 8. I have set Yahweh always before me, because he is at my right hand. I am not forsaken.
Now this person
They're
putting
not
Yahweh
shaken.
at his right hand. How you gonna put Yahweh at your right hand? Like you just use him at your disposal, right? He's like the big gun that you pulling out. Because it's not about putting someone somewhere, it's about where your strength lies. Okay? And so it's not a place, right? It's kind of an idea. And so go back to Psalms 110 over here. And so Yeshua is talking about this person here that David is saying, Yahweh said to my master, sit at my right hand until your enemies, until I make your enemies a footstool for you. Again, this is euphemistic. It's hyperbole. There's no footstool, right? There's no feet, right? But it's giving forth this idea. But the thing to think about is what is being said in terms of David. David, who's the speaker here, is talking about something being said to his master, which is where it is all of these things started at in the first place. David's master, who, from a prophetic understanding, the Messiah is from the line of David. So he's a son, grandson, great grandson. He's not ancestor. He's a progenation, offspring of. I'm just making up words. Progenation. That's a good one though, isn't it? That works. Progenation.
Why not?
He's an offspring of David. And so the question that he's asking, how can you call something that came from you your master? What's the makeup of somebody who came from you, but is greater than you? And so if we look back at even just the idea of this Davidic covenant, because the Messiah coming from David is really connected to the Davidic covenant. Because if we look at this, let's go back to 2 Samuel 7. 2 Samuel chapter 7. What does verse 16 say?
2 Samuel 7:16, and your house and your...
Hold on, read 15 and 16.
Okay. Verse 15. But my loving commitment does not turn aside from him, as I turned it aside from Shaul, whom I removed from before you. And your house and your reign are to be steadfast forever before you. Your throne is established forever.
Okay, so there is a establishment of this throne forever. As soon as you say forever, it makes it be something more than just on the physical level. It takes it to another level. As soon as you say forever. Like there's not going to be an end to it. Why not? I mean, I guess if you think about it from a physical standpoint, yeah. You know, some other people gonna come along. We're gonna get to a place where there ain't no kings. It don't change this, right? And so, as soon as you get into this endless time and this olam situation, what is that? What's that word there? Forever. What's the word forever there? What's that one there? As soon as you get into this olam situation, it's like it makes it be something else. Okay? And so there's various verses, like when you think about Isaiah 9, let's go to Isaiah 9 and 16, very, very popular verse. Isaiah 9, 6 through 7.
Isaiah 9:6. For a child is born unto us, a son is given unto us, and the rule is on his shoulder, and his name is called Wonder, Counselor, Strong El, Father of Continuity, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his rule and peace there is no end upon the throne of David and over his reign, to establish it and sustain it with right ruling and with righteousness from now on, even forever. The order of Yahweh of hosts does this.
Okay, so the Yahweh of hosts does all of this stuff. He established it, and he sustains it now, whenever this was written, and forever. And so once you do all of these things, it takes it outside of the physical realm. Those things are included, but it takes it outside of it too. And so that understanding exists already. And so again, they said David's not the right answer because it's not the point of what he's going to. If we go back to Psalms, when we think about the thought process of who the Messiah is, this thing here is spiritual. And so when Yeshua brings up Psalms 110 and verse 1, and he go and you look at all of these things, and you know he says all of what he says all the way down. I'll read 3 down through 4.
Your people volunteer in the day of your might, and in the splendors of your set apartness. From the womb of the morning, you have the dew of your youth. Yahweh has sworn and does not relent. You are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek.
Oh, now see, now Yeshua don't say verse 4, but it's implied though. It's implied though, and all of the things that go along with it. He just kept it at the beginning and talking about David calling his son master. They don't even really know how, they don't know the answer, but why is Yeshua bringing this up? How is it that David can in fact call his seed, or one from his seed, master? How can his son or somebody who came from his son be greater than him in this way. And by the way, is sitting at the right hand of the Father. The strength of the Most High rests in on him. If we think about Isaiah chapter 11, when it talks about the seed of David and him possessing the spirit of Yahweh, the discernment and wisdom and fear of Yahweh, and all of these things, the spirit, the power, the authority of the Most High rests on this person. This person, who Yeshua, of course, is not saying it right there, but he's the person, right? It's kind of like a David-ish moment, like where they were supposed to say, "You are the man," but they didn't get it. Go ahead. What was you going to say?
I was just saying, we were just talking this morning about, I was talking to the kids about David and Saul, and it's like, Saul killed, the thousands, and David killed 10,000s. At the time David is even prophesying this, he's at his heights, the heights of Israel. They have the most land, you know what I mean? Like, it's right before the downfall and everything starts really getting bad again. All power is consolidated under him. And it's like, to start talking about someone who's greater than you at that point, it's I don't know. I feel like those Pharisees didn't have a good answer.
They didn't have a good answer, but according to Paul, they couldn't have had a good answer, right? They couldn't have had a good answer because they're carnally minded. The whole time he's sitting up there doing all of these things, and they can't tell who he is because of their own pride and hypocrisy inside of them. Like, as soon as he starts sitting up there raising people from the dead, they should have been like, "Oh yeah, that's the guy right there." But because of the hardness of their hearts, they had this inability to recognize the Messiah sitting right in front of them. And so he basically saying, "I'm sitting right here," and they're like, "Oh yeah, David." No, the answer's not David. The answer actually is me, but I'm just going to point you back to Psalms 110:1. But verse 4 talks about this person is after the order of Melchizedek. This mysterious individual who pops up out of nowhere, who has no beginning.
Yeah.
And has no end. Go to verse 4 right there. Because when you bring up this person, this mysterious person who was the king of righteousness, when he comes around from this land, I don't know what land he even comes from. The mysterious land.
It's like a dream.
It's a mysterious land. It's a place that is the land, but there's strange people in the land. There's strange people in the land that have to be displaced. But he's actually from that land. But is he in the midst of wicked people? But he's the king of righteousness. But the people there, they're not righteous. But who's he the king of? He's a priest of Yahweh. But how did he get to be that? Who made him that? I guess Yahweh made him. But there's so much mystery involved in this fella. But the person that David's talking about is a priest according to his order. And he sits at the right hand. So does Melchizedek sit at the right hand? I don't know what the difference is between the master of David who sits at the right hand of the Most High and Melchizedek. What you said?
So I just see king of righteousness.
King of righteousness, it says it right there. But if you think about the king of righteousness, I don't know who that is outside of Yeshua. Who is the king of righteousness? But I want to look at something. Look at verse 4. Because this Messiah person, he's a priest according to the order of Melchizedek. That means he's a priest like Melchizedek is. That's what it means. Does it mean that? Here, look at that word there. I was waiting for you to go. I just want to say it don't just mean Divrah. That word there is the feminine of Debar. This is an interesting word. This feminized version of the word that means word or thing. This means it is, it is a reason. It's a reason. Go to Job. Go to Job. Go to Job 5 and 8. What's that say right there?
But as for me, I would seek El, and I would submit my case to Elohim.
Okay, so when we think about this idea of this individual here submitting his case, this word means that once he says all the things that he has to say about the thing, there's nothing left to be said. Right? Once he gives this reason, he's fully giving the reason. Okay? He's taking the reason all the way to an end. It's interesting that this is the feminine version of Debar. Because when you think about it, this might sound a little bit whatever, but it is what it is. You know, women, they use more words most of the times. You know, sometimes I gotta speed. Can you just tell me what the thing is? Like, I don't gotta hear all of the details. Just give me the thing. But you know, they want to say all of the things, and they get through all of the things. They're saying everything. Like the little points and details. They're giving me the reason. Not this one, the other one. There's this one here. Yeah, they're giving me the reason. And once this, and so when we think about Job, the Job over here, once the case has been submitted to Elohim, everything that can be given has been said. So all the things that are included in the case are just like a lawyer. He's bringing all of the documents to the thing, the big old the box with all of the things in it. It has all of the situations that explain everything are presented with this word here, right? The reason. And so if we think about that in the context of Psalms over there, the order of Melchizedek is not just like Melchizedek, but everything that's involved, that's included in of. Sorry, that's what that word is, right? That's what that word is Devrah. That's what that word is. Everything that's included in this idea of Melchizedek is included in this Messiah person. So it's more than just like Melchizedek. It's everything that's involved in being, this type here priesthood. All that can be said about the matter. And so when we think about what that means, the scriptures don't really tell us about Melchizedek. We don't learn about Melchizedek more than what he physically did in Genesis until Hebrews. And Hebrews is the ones that talk about the fact that he didn't have any genealogies, no parents. He talks about them being a priest forever. Kind of like the Messiah figure in a Davidic situation. Now, Yeshua, the first thing we know about Yeshua is his genealogy. But like unto Yeshua, where David's over, he brings up the verse where it talks about David's master. You know, they're not wrong when they say David, but they're thinking about it from a physical standpoint. When you think about it from a spiritual standpoint, there's no beginning. Just like in Melchizedek's case, when you think about it from a spiritual standpoint, there's no beginning. Even though when we think about the priesthood, we don't know anything about the priesthood of Yahweh outside of the Levitical priesthood. We don't know about it. But the Levitical priesthood is only just a physical picture of the priesthood of Melchizedek. The forever spiritual priesthood, the physical priesthood, is kind of this anthropomorphism of the spiritual thing. He gives us this thing that is, you know, how we're able to receive it from a physical standpoint. And so once Yeshua takes it all the way to Melchizedek, he basically said that he basically gave them a reason to kill him at this point. Because once you say this, what is he saying? What is he saying about himself? He's not saying he's talking about himself. He's saying, what is it that you think about the Messiah? The people believe that Yeshua is the Messiah. They don't necessarily, well, not openly anyway. But the going thought of who Yeshua is that he is in fact Messiah. So when he asks the question, you know, he's implying that it's talking about himself. But in doing that, he basically saying, I sit at the right hand of Elohim. I'm the physical representation of the strength of the Most High. His power and authority is manifest through me. He basically said, without saying. And so when you think about the result now of what happens, you know, the people, it says in Mark, go to Mark 12, and we're about to close up here. Go to Mark in 12 and 37.
Mark 12:37. David himself calls him master. In what way then is he his son? As a large crowd heard him gladly.
Now there's a large crowd of people there. They hear this and they're good with it. In fact, they're excited about what it is that Yeshua is saying over it. The quote unquote religious minds. You know, this is slightly offensive to them, because how could this be who he says that he is? I mean, outside of the fact that he does all of these things, but I guess the idea of accepting these truths is too much for them to handle. But I kind of just want to think about the fact that Yeshua, you know, he hints at so many things throughout his life up until this point. And, you know, he's still doing it here. He's still hinting at the idea of who he is. He's not actually coming straight out and saying it, but with the thing that he's hinting, he's helping for us to be able to understand really the nature of who he really is. He's hinting at the idea of, you know, causing these people to look beyond what they could physically see with their eyes and think about things from a spiritual perspective to who he really and truly is. Yeshua, when he the Most High through the prophets, when he talks about his arm, him bearing his arm before the nations, you know, when you think about what that is, at some point you have to understand that he's not literally sticking his arm down out from the heavenlies. And again, also the idea of, David being the one, his seed being the one that's manifesting this. At some point, the people had to have got to the place of understanding that when these prophecies come true, I'm probably going to be looking at someone that's doing it. And Yeshua here is saying that he is in fact that one. And so it's interesting that, again, kind of just closing down here, when we think about Yeshua and who he is. Yeshua really is, to me, I feel like Yeshua here is exposing the fact that he's deity. I don't know what else he could be doing once you bring up this idea of Melchizedek. And I think that the very idea that this was so kind of troubling for the Pharisees, the ones that he was speaking to, that, this has to be kind of this weighty, like heavy situation that is hard to kind of physically think about and understand. But again, it leads to this whole idea of the Most High, he is spirit. And the only way we can really think about anything is from a physical standpoint. And so at some point, he has to be able to deal with us in this realm in a particular way for us to be able to understand. Like, how can we understand kind of endlessness? Like, I can't even think about what eternity is. I don't understand it. Like, I need like a box, something that has a beginning and an end. But the Most High has no beginning. He has no end. But at some point, he comes and deals with us in such a way that we're able to understand that, just like Melchizedek, where he comes on the scene, he's this mysterious figure, Yeshua is the same way. Just like Yeshua compares himself to manna, where manna is this mysterious substance, and he compares himself to manna that comes, is the sustenance given by the Most High. And so again, it's interesting that Yeshua, after this kind of, I don't know how long this process was of him dealing with all of these various interactions, but he finally gets he's had enough with the back and forth, and just this is what he brings out to just stop all of this madness of the people questioning. Does anybody have any thoughts, questions, comments?
Yeah, when you look at Melchizedek and when he comes on the scene, it's almost prophetic the way he even comes to Abraham. It's like what do we call that? What's the word we use for it? There's a word where it's like in the middle.
Parenthetical
interruption. Because it's like Abraham's going down to meet these kings, and then this happens, and he meets the kings. So it's kind of like, it's like placed in there. It's almost like it's outside of time and space in some ways. Spatially, like the physical reality is not necessarily important here. And so, and I know there might be other people who believe differently, but I believe that Yeshua is Melchizedek. First and foremost, I believe I know that. But number two, it's not like some priesthood that existed physically before the Levitical priesthood.
Physically.
It's not a physical thing. And so, it's definitely a spiritual thing.
Yes, it's definitely a spiritual thing. And it's interesting, again, when you look at Yeshua in Hebrews, when it talks about the Yeshua going into the tabernacle not made by hands, he's carrying out this thing that we think about as the Levitical priesthood. But he's doing it from a spiritual perspective, but he's not a Levite. He don't fit those qualifications, but guess what? It should be the other way around. They don't fit his qualifications. No one does. There's only one who fits the qualifications. There's only one individual who could fit the qualifications after the order of this priesthood, after the order of Melchizedek, and it's Yeshua. And so again, Yeshua, this is, he pulls this out and say, y'all stop messing with me. Just take this one right here. And it works too, right? Okay. So, yes, go ahead.
I would really frame, and not, I appreciate everything that was being said, but I would frame this a little differently to accent, like one, if you go to Mark, why were the crowd so elated when he made this statement and he asked the question? And I think that if we don't really look at it from that standpoint, we're looking more religiously than in actuality. And in actuality, if you know anything about Haiti, for example, like the current conditions Haiti is in, that was the condition, give or take a few formalities, that Jerusalem was in. And then when we go back and read it, he's asking the powers that be, who, just like Haiti, if we compare Haiti's current condition, they went through Papa Doc, they went through the French colonization, they went through such and such, and just like then, the Romans were currently occupying Jerusalem. The people who are supposed to be on our blood-related side, ousting the Romans, are in bed with these clowns. And then he says to them, I am going to crush every single one of them. And the people rejoice. Yes, they're happy. No more light bills. No more taxes. No more going to work for 40 hours a week. And in Haiti, it's different. It's free zones and Hanes underwear and people making less than $3 a month. And now, if we reread it in that context, he says that Yahweh said unto my sovereign, sit thou at my right hand until I make thy enemies thy footstool. So the way I look at that is in tandem with what you said, but to hyperlink or state me this other part, his right hand is a person and it's a position. And when you read Psalms 98, keep in mind that this is coming before Psalms 110 if you read it in sequential order. Psalms 98:1 says, a psalm, O sing unto Yahweh a new song, for he hath done marvelous things. His right hand and his right arm hath gotten him the victory. Well, when you read back in Psalms 110, he said in verse 4, in verse 5, Yahweh at thy right hand shall strike through kings in the day of his wrath. Now notice that this comes right after Psalms 104 and 110 in verse 4, a priest after the order of Melchizedek. Now the beauty in this is this. Abraham killed people. People don't look at that like that. Abraham had an army and killed people.
Not crazy.
They look at him like some hippie in flip-flops. He killed people. Killed them. Why? Because they unjustly kidnapped his nephew and took all his. How many possessions did his nephew have? I mean, was Lot rich?
Yeah,
I mean, are we talking like Lot had like one cattle?
he had things.
Lot was
They had to
rich.
separate.
They had to separate. He had so much. Now you went and kidnapped my nephew? Are you out of your mind? Hey, let's go get him. And Abraham went and killed them men. And when he came back, that's when the priest pops up. That he never even seen before, as far as we know. And the priest, he shared resources with Abraham. Some bread and wine. oh, yo, you my man. Why is he my man? Because you just killed people on the side of justice. Now, I'm not saying we need to do that. My point is that all of this is in the context of Yeshua coming in and saying, what did verse 6 say? He shall judge, which means to deal righteously among the nations. And he shall fill the nations with what? Dead bodies. What did Abraham do? He filled the nations with dead bodies. He shall crush the head over many. We're talking war here. We're talking war. So when the people heard that, mind you, they're looking for this messianic figure that's going to come and destroy the Romans. And that's what you read in the book of Acts. Like, oh, we thought he was going to be the one to kill the Romans and put us back in power. And that's not what happened. So they got disappointed. But I think when we read it in that context, that, you know, like this right arm, and again, I agree with everything else. It's a person and a position. And I think you just alluded to, like, he shall make bare his right arm. I think you just said, I think that's Isaiah something like that. Maybe it's Psalms. Isaiah. But
52.
yeah, he whatever that text means, I think one of the things it's expressing is he laid bare his right arm. He put him out there. And he put out there whatever that language is. There was a body that was put out there to ultimately be made destruction. And that ultimately came back, that entity or person was the one who was designed to deliver us. So, again, I agree. I would just say that when the crowd rejoiced, they're like, yeah, because they knew David was a killer, a warrior, justly. Abraham, the same thing. And now we're about to get some victory. No more 40-hour working. You know what I'm saying? College tuitions and all that. We're about to be free. So I would add that to that, the way I think that they perceive him saying this text also.
Yes, definitely when you think about the people's reaction, because this wasn't hidden like a secret thought about what the Messiah was going to do. When you think about the fullness of Messiah coming and what he is going to do, he got to do with all of these things. And so, you know, this. Let's end with. Let's go to Isaiah
So that's a little.
52.
I think if you look at that arm in Psalms 98, his holy arm, I think it talks about the conceiving of seed.
Go. 98. Which verse is it?
I think it's 98 and 1. It's just interesting language. His arm.
His right
Try
hand.
that-
Oh, his holy
the
arm. Yeah,
So, you know, look and see if that says something about it.
that's what it is
Seed,
right
seed.
there. I can tell already. You probably thinking about it based off of the
Go to,
letters.
30, go
Yeah.
to the word that is from 22 verse 8.
Oh.
This is interesting. To conceive seed.
Mhm.
Like his arm, like figuratively, like
Yeah.
something, maybe.
I mean, you think about
That's
that
the-
thing. It's going out and it's doing something,
Yeah.
and it's bringing back results. Right, that seed that's going out. If it's fructifying, it's working. Like it's going and doing the thing
Bringing
that
something
it.
forth.
Yeah, it's going out and it's doing the thing that it's meant to do, which is there's an action involved in it. And so when you think about that in terms of this arm that's going out and doing work, it's all of that's included in it. But go over to Isaiah 52. Because again, you know, Yeshua, he's making a point of saying who he is without saying it completely right here. You know, he has to do everything in its place. But go down to 10, I think it is.
Isaiah 52 and 10.
Wait, is that the one? Oh, yeah.
Isaiah 52 and 10. Yahweh shall lay bare his set apart arm in the eyes of all the nations, and all the ends of the earth shall see the deliverance of our Elohim.
I always think about this in terms of, somebody, with these muscles, with this big strong arm, and like but you can't see it because he got his shirt on. He's modest. You know what I mean? But when it comes down to it, when he take that shirt off though, and you see what's about to happen to you, like that's what happens. Right? And the people seen it, and then they was able to know, based on seeing it, that deliverance is coming. And so when you think about the reaction that the people have as a result of what Yeshua said, these things that he's saying without saying, but he said, he's how frequent. That's how we talk to one another. If we in tune with each other, we able to say things without saying things. You know what I mean? And that's what Yeshua did, and the message was clear. And so I think that, just kind of thinking about the fact that when we're able to understand exactly who Yeshua is, and when we're able to understand who he is and what he actually came to do, it's a thing that brings about gladness and joy and knowing who he is. He is, in fact, the strength of Yahweh. And so when we're out here like these people, he said what he said, and they were still in the situation that they was, whatever situation it was. But they was able to not think about that and think about who Yeshua said that he is, and it brings about gladness. And so the same thing is true for us. You know what I mean? I don't know if he's coming tomorrow or next week or whenever, but I'm still able to think about who he is and what he represents and be glad in knowing just that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, for me, looking at this situation here, you're able to all you just can think about really is just who Yeshua is, and that really be enough. And it's something that we're able to, it should be something that's able to sustain us through things, understanding that, what don't matter what it is that we're going through, we're able to look to the deliverer and know that in him there is deliverance and redemption and all these other things. All right. That being said, does anybody else have any thoughts, questions, or comments before we
Is
begin?
that Isaiah 42? Do you look at that as
42?
yeah, the one you just went to?
Oh,
Do you look at that
52.
as Him, yeah, 52. Him destroying his right arm?
Destroying the arm?
Yeah,
No.
like that laid bare. What do you think of something?
I would say that that's him. But when you look at the verse, all ends of the earth shall see the deliverance of Elohim. The deliverance of Elohim is coming from his arm. And so it's doing a thing to the nations. Yahweh is. So what's the word say there? What's that say? I think that him laying bare his arm is exposing his strength to the nations and doing something bad to the nations.
I might be thinking
Strip off, make naked. He's exposing the arm. He's showing the muscle before he slaps. The nations are about to get slapped, and they're seeing the back of the hand attached to that arm coming. That's kind of what I think about when I see it. Uncover, right? I mean, that's my thoughts. Somebody else might have other thoughts. To me, that's the arm. That's the judgment about to come down on the nation. Okay. All right. That being said, I think we can be done for now. Y'all willing, we'll be back on next Shabbat. For this, we'll be back on tomorrow for Shavuot. But for now, we'll say Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.